This is the InCamera podcast with me, Alvin Tedjo, the big city podcast about big city problems and big city solutions. This week's guest is Tim Hudak, the former leader of the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party from 2009 to 2014, and now a partner at Council Public Affairs. Tim and I were on the opposite sides at Queen's Park, but good ideas come from both sides of the aisle. And while he didn't get to enact his vision during his time as leader, we're now seeing many of the things that he advocated for being implemented by conservative and liberal governments alike, like a greater investment in the skilled trades, housing, and economic development. In our conversation today, we explore Tim's career, starting with his family interest, to how he became one of the youngest members of the legislature, to his time as leader of the opposition. Since leaving politics, Tim has taken on more advocacy work, first as CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association, where he became a leader in housing policy, to his current work at Council Public Affairs. And now, our in-camera conversation with Tim Hudak. Really happy to have you here today, Tim.
Alvin, good seeing you. Thanks for having me on InCamera.
Yeah.
Great name.
Well, we've known each other over the years. We've met each other a few times. I think
You were on my radio show, man.
You've interviewed me a couple of times too.
You were good.
When I was running.
I said, this guy's got a future.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, it's nice for you to come on here, come all the way to Mississauga, and really talk about, I wanted you here because you've had a wealth of experience in public life in Ontario, right? And so you've seen how the sausage gets made. You helped make it for a little while. You were in opposition.
I'm hungry. Had a light lunch.
And you yourself were one of the youngest members of the legislature when you got elected.
That's
right?
true.
So, really, let's start from the beginning. What got you into that? What got you interested in politics?
Man. It was an accident. What got me interested in politics? Okay. So I get to how I got elected the first time, which was accidental. But it was a good accident, obviously. At least I thought so. Alvin, I think you're probably a lot this way. Like, I always found history interesting. As a young guy, I interested in who our prime minister was, who the president was. I like that kind of stuff. And my grandfather, my mom's dad, Thomas Dillon, was from Sarnia, Ontario. And he's a big union leader and activist. Every year, a CCF or NDP sign on the lawn.
Okay.
So he saw in his, his grandson Timmy, at the time, somebody who was interested in public life and civics, and he gave me some books to read. He actually gave me Mao's book,
okay.
The little red book.
Okay.
Biography Tommy Douglas. He was a hardcore lefty, and he sort of put the bug in me. And when I went off to, I was a graduate University of Western Ontario from the Niagara Peninsula as home. I took economics as my area of study, and I always took politics courses on the side. Mm-hmm. So I thought, you know what? I ended up doing my master's degree in economics. I thought I want to take this education, combine it with what I learned on Grandpa's knee and read the newspaper, the Sarnia Observer, them back in the day, and put it to work and be a political staffer and try to make a difference.
So then how did you get into running?
Accident. It's almost like I previewed that one. So, I came back from the University of Washington in 1993, and I wanted to work on Parliament Hill, so I volunteered. My grandfather, God bless his soul, was the hardcore New Democrat. I turned on him like the reverse Duke's Darth Vader, and became.
So he wasn't happy.
Yeah, you know what? I'll do a bit of a sidebar on this one. He was proud. Like I remember going to my grandfather's 90th birthday party. And I was a newly elected MPP, and he wouldn't want one from Premier Mike Harris, a scroll, so I went to former Premier Bob Ray, New Democrats. Okay. And Bob Ray actually did a really nice write-up to me about my grandfather, the union he was involved with. He famously fought to get additional dental benefits, which were, people said, no, go for the money. He said, no, let's get benefits, which proved to be very smart for the people he represented. So I had this scroll from a New Democrat Premier and presented it. And Lauren Henderson was a longtime Conservative member for Sarnia Lambton. And so he was like my grandpa's rival. We were at each other all the time in campaigns. And Lauren showed up, and he teased my grandpa, not only at his 90th birthday, but his grandson finally saw the light and came over to the Conservative Party. My grandpa was proud. Even though I was not the right party, the fact that he had, helped develop this interest in me, and he was proud that a relative of the family became a member of provincial parliament.
Yeah, so I'm sure he was proud.
Yeah. So I came back from Washington, and worked my tail off in the 93 election campaign, hoping that I would then get a job, working for a minister. In 93 for the Conservatives was a wipeout. We were, our caucus could meet in a phone booth. There were 2 members elected, so the job opportunities dried up. 95 comes around, I say, you know what, I like Mike Harris. My riding's not going to win provincially, but I was a campaign manager. And then I would get a job that way and follow my aspirations of being a political advisor. And my candidate dropped out. So folks said, who's going to run in the riding? And said, well, let's get Tim to do it, right? He'll try anything.
And you were, how old were you?
27.
Yeah.
27 at the time. So I worked my tail off, won the nomination, and then the election campaign, never thought I was going to win until like about maybe 2 days left, when there was a real, wind of change for Mike Harris. People saying, I don't care who you are, you're 27, whatever. Put a sign up on my lawn. I like what Harris had to say. He might not do it, but I like what he's got in his platform. And I remember to this day vividly walking to my campaign office being declared by the local media as the winner in Niagara South by like 1,200 votes in a 3-way split. Squeaked in. Never thought it was going to happen. That was the accident that got me there, and it stuck.
Well, I mean, over the 21 years, I was looking up your electoral record. I mean, you increased those leads significantly over the years. I think it was tens of thousands by the time you were done.
Well, I mean, you're the same school, right? You need to remember, who sent you there. It's an honor to serve at Queen's Park or at Mississauga City Hall, but you can't go Hollywood. You got to remember you get there because the people in your ward, in your riding, put their faith in you. And so I went to every event I could. I went to make sure that I fought for, whether it was a new hospital expansion in my riding, new long-term care beds, new parks. And over time, as you found in your own success too, that when you help people, that you show you're there for them and for the community, regardless of political stripe, you can survive the ups and downs. And I did have 6 election wins in Niagara.
Transitioning to your time as PC leader and leader of the official opposition, how did you find those years? I mean, you were countering a majority government, although I guess the second one was a minority. The role of opposition nowadays, we're talking a lot about the polarization. I don't remember it being as bad as it is now, and maybe people are starting to see some changes. But, kind of walk through that, like how you felt as the leader there.
It was exhilarating, right? There was, aside from getting married to Debbie and the birth of my daughters, winning the leadership of the Ontario PC Party, and being able to, even though I wasn't successful in becoming premier, to fight for what you believe in, to be on that stage in the bright spotlight with all the pressure of the debate and more than hold your own, to have a vision for what I believe is going to be a better Ontario. Alvin, there was nothing like it. And in party politics, to be chosen as the leader of your tribe, so to speak, is a tremendous honor. Yeah, there's pressure, a lot of weight on your back. But to have folks who take the time to volunteer in campaigns, raise money for a party, roll up their sleeves and knock on doors, to come together and choose you to lead the party, it was an incredible honor and an amazing experience. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
I mean, it's always a difficult time in politics. I mean, there was, I think, the recession. There were a number of different issues that, the parties had to go through. And then ultimately, sometimes you find that history kind of redeems your position on certain things, right? You see certain parties adopt certain policies. Is there anything particular that you're, particularly proud of?
We worked really hard on ideas to make life more affordable for Ontarians, to get more, high-paying jobs in a province, to open more opportunities for young people. Yep. And we did a series of we call them white papers in politics, like thoughtful, opinion-leading pieces on policy that we put in the window. And, while we didn't have a chance to put them into practice, it's been heartwarming to talk to people who work for Doug Ford that they've actually used a number of those things as manuals. So by way of example, I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. I've tried to put a nail on the wall. I'm going to likely take out a finger. But I really believe we need to do more in skilled trades. Mm-hmm. And the opportunities that opens up for young women, young men, and I'm really proud of a lot of things we stood for. Actually, while I didn't get to do it, are now in action, creating those opportunities by way of example. I'm one who believes that the government should do what government does best and set policy, set direction, but the private sector has an important role to play. A number of changes that began in the Wynne government and continued on the Ford government, of government knowing its place. Like, finally, I know it's not the biggest party in the world, but finally I can actually go to a corner store and get a 6-pack of beer or some Niagara wine was one that I was pilloried for before. And then sensible energy policy, like, nuclear and hydro as the backbone of our energy was something where that was seen as kind of being out in the wilderness back in the day. It was all going to be wind and solar. Well, you know what? Now we've actually gone to a thoughtful, proven form of energy that's reliable, creates good quality jobs, and now we can be an energy exporter instead of being reliant on imports.
And I saw they're investing in small modular nuclear reactors now too, and they're leading the way. They know it's expensive right now, but it's an opportunity for us economically to lead the way and then be the driver of this around the world, right? And that's great position for Ontario to be in.
Huge Canadian advantage, right? It's a technology that we have mastered. Well, it's expensive to start. It gives you reliable, affordable baseload power, so you can attract industry back to Ontario. It is emission free, so it's good for the environment, and we can actually now, send our affordable hydro into other provinces and into the States, and then exporting more nuclear technology, right? Saskatchewan, for example, is going to be doing the small modular. Yep. It's going to open up parts of our province like Northern Ontario, the territories in Canada, for greater job creation, especially in the resource sector at affordable rates. I think it is a wonderful revolution, and it feels good to have been calling for these things and now seeing them happen.
So, very few people have been in your position where they were, running for premier. If you had to take Mr. Ford's place, or you were advising him, maybe you do advise him, does he call you? What would you tell him where we need to go right now, where we need to focus given all the issues we're having with the U.S., with interprovincial trade? How do we move on as a province?
Geez, that's a lot. No, I think Premier Ford's doing an excellent job. I've had the pleasure of knowing him, I think, Alvin, like 30 years now. His dad served with me when I was in the legislature in New Duggan, of course, his brother, Mayor Rob Ford. I've never seen a politician with a greater barometer on where public opinion is. And sometimes you make a decision, you need to adjust it, and he does so and moves forward. And now historic, right? 3 back-to-back majority governments. I think it's incredible. It's breathtaking. So does he call me? Yeah, he's been really good to me. And, I in return have tried to help in areas like housing. So what's the thing I would do if he said, okay, time out, I go on a vacation, Hudak, you take over the big chair for a little bit? Well, clearly, number one on the list is a standalone city, Mississauga. That would be like this, Alvin.
Great.
It would happen right. That makes sense. I wish that would have happened. It's too bad.
So do I.
I think when municipalities get to be a certain size, they should grow up and move out of the house and have their own. The second,
I paid him to do that. So,
I've been a believer for some time, and maybe someday we'll get there. The second area, and it's something you and I have talked about, and you've been giving me great advice in my former capacity as CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association. I think we've eased off the accelerator when it comes to getting homes built that average Canadians can actually afford. Yeah. Ideas are on the table. We hit the brake a little bit, and now with our export manufacturing sectors going through uncertainty for some time with the tariff battle, we really need to see housing as a buoy for our economy we can wrap our arms around if we actually have the courage to be aggressive in getting them done. And number 3 on the tariff side, I think Doug Ford's done a masterful job in being sort of Captain Canada and thinking about a relationship with the Americans that's going to make Canadians better off and Americans better off at the same time.
Right.
So what are the trade-offs that we need to make with the Americans to get, inside that tariff wall, which will then, give us an even brighter future if we can still work with the American and Mexican markets if others are being shut out. There's an advantage. So what exactly will those trades be to get inside that fence?
So, let's dive into the housing piece because, this is one that we talk a lot about as a municipality. We're trying to reduce barriers. We've reduced our development charges. We're trying to incentivize more purpose-built rental. From your time at OREA and from your relationship with the province, what else could we be doing? What else can we be pushing? You talked about the trades a little bit because we need all hands on deck, right? We need the federal government, the provincial government, and municipalities. For the first time in a long while, it feels like everyone's on the same page that we need to build more housing. We still have NIMBYs and a lot of other issues in sort of getting there. But, from the perspective of yours, like what else can we do here?
Yeah, so my observation, Mississauga has been a leader in getting more homes built, right? Mm-hmm. The policy allowing some more homes on existing spaces. We can only grow so far out, so how do you actually maximize the space that you have? And if you allow for duplexes, triplexes, or fourplexes, those are often the homes for first-time home buyers. They can get out of mom and dad's basement, get a place of their own, and move up the ladder. So kudos on that. I know you've made moves to reduce your development charges, work with home builders to get more homes going, looking at properties that the city owns as well. Like, it seems like when I check the boxes of what other municipalities should be doing, Mississauga's going down the right path. Here's what I think the province should do. I think the province really needs to have a carrot and stick approach. So if a city's doing the right thing and they're building more homes so young people can stay in the community that they love, they should be rewarded. So they get money for the transit project or the new bridge, the new arena. But there are municipalities, Alvin, that you encounter them in AMO and such, that listen to the NIMBYs, the not in my backyard forces. They say, well, these people, they're not like us. Maybe we don't want them in the community. Maybe we don't want too many young people in our area. Let's just keep, things as they are. Well, they need a stick approach. They don't get the money for those projects. And if they don't actually open room for more people to move in because we need to, then I think the province needs to force it.
Yeah. Well, and I think they're thinking about it. I think they're introducing some legislation in the next little while that might do more of that carrot and stick approach. I mean, the feds have tried to throw some money at it, and some municipalities just said, no thanks.
Right.
Yeah, we're happy the way it is.
If you're not going to eat the carrot, then you might have to eat the stick.
I guess.
Is that a new expression?
Maybe. But I mean, Mississauga is interesting because we're the third or fourth largest city in the province right now, and there's always a challenge with municipal financing, right? I mean, one of the reasons we wanted to separate was because we felt like we were subsidizing the other parts of the region exorbitant amounts, and so Hazel was never a fan of the region, even when
talk to me about it.
Yeah, it was initially formed, right? So it's a challenge for us to sort of see how we can continue growing without additional tools or revenue or a deal from the province. And the province, they like doing right now. They like doing these one-offs. I would love to see a more cohesive approach to how the province deals with municipalities, other than just, okay, we're going to give a deal to Toronto. We'll give a deal to subsidize transit for Ottawa. And then it's kind of a wait and see kind of a thing as to where you are in the queue.
Yeah, I think we are entering a time where we have that opportunity because we are, we'll see where things go with the Americans, but we're, if not at crisis mode, pretty close to it. So I think you could put a deal on the table, municipal leadership, to say, okay, in return for getting, more homes built, fighting crime, things you can control more at a municipal level, in return, we would like to have less red tape. We'd like to have a new revenue source. If we're going to attract more homes, could we get a share of the land transfer tax that the province brings in? So I like to think, just like we had the Marshall Plan after World War II, right? That you could have something around that focused on housing, because that really can be what keeps our head above water during the current crisis.
Yeah. You said Hazel talked to you about some of those things. Everyone seems to have a Hazel story. Do you have a Hazel story?
I was lots of time with Mayor McCallion over the years, and always crystal clear with where she stood. One election she was against me, and one election I think she was either for or kind of neutral. You knew where she stood, right? But the one that comes to mind immediately, Alvin, when you ask, comes a bit more on the real estate side when I was CEO of AREA, because here at Town Hall, the local realtors, Mississauga realtors, would always celebrate the Citizen of the Year.
Yep.
They would recognize our emergency services workers as well. There's always police and fire and paramedics here being honored. And Mayor McCallion never missed, one of those opportunities. And she spoke from the heart, too, about the value of home ownership and how we need to make sure more people get the keys to a great place to call home. I mean, look at how Mississauga grew under her leadership. So she walked the walk in that respect. And then I remember when she would encounter people who would say, no, we got to close our doors and not let anybody else in. She would had a line, I forget exactly how it goes, but imagine, when did you move to town? They said 10 years ago. Well, imagine if I did that, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be here. So how she walked the walk and demonstrated right through her last days as mayor a commitment to that great Canadian value of home ownership was always very touching. In fact, I brought her in as a professor. I ran a realtor college for aspiring politicians to run municipally, provincially, or federally. Okay. And Hazel McCallion was one of our profs that day, and she did an awesome job.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. What advice did you have for people wanting to enter politics?
For the real estate side, there's a natural connection.
Yeah.
Right? To be good at real estate, you got to hustle, you got to be a networker. You need to understand your community and care deeply about it, because people can sense it if you, this showing up for the ribbon cutting, you didn't do any work to get something built. They're consummate volunteers, and as generalists, right? That's a part of function of success when you're in politics, because you got to be involved in so many different files. So there was a natural connection. I think we had about 30 that ran for various positions, and I think 20 or so got elected. That was municipal and trustee and all that kind of stuff. And then the basic lesson was, plan, build your team, do the heavy lifting, right? Get your hands dirty. It's very hard to waltz in office the first time you run. You've got to demonstrate to your constituents that you've done the hard work to get there.
Yeah. So, I mean, did you ever think about running in municipal government?
No. I need an escape, man. I need an escape. My mom was a town councilor in Fort Erie, an area called Stevensville. My mom wasn't a partisan for any political party. She actually ran to make a difference for the community, and she felt an old boys club was running the town. Mm-hmm. You may have heard about this. It was in the Fort Erie Times back in about 1988. Okay. Anyone heard about this? And she knocked on every door she could, including the convent, which was just down the street from my parents lived. And the nuns were impressed when Mom came, were Catholic, and they couldn't get to the polls. So my parents had a van and took 9 nuns to vote that day, and she won by 8 votes out the first time out. So, of course, we're in mass from then on, like the second pew, right? Yeah. Right there by the front. So I saw my mom worked hard. She did 3 terms there. But, man, there's no escape. So, one time there's a controversy in town about privatizing parts of the arena and having a restaurant in there, and God forgive a bar, and that was really controversial in Fort Erie at the time. Okay. And everywhere she went. So the nice thing about provincial or federal politics is you can escape to the capital once in a while and get your groceries in peace and fill up your car in peace. You can't do that, man.
No, I've seen that. People come to me at the gym. People come to me at the grocery store. Hey, what's going on with this thing?
And people are almost always nice, right? They're almost always nice. But there is a benefit to be able to hit the off switch from time to time.
So what advice would you give, your conservative, the federal conservatives now? I mean, they're in a, challenging situation. They lost a big lead, but, you're hearing a change of tone, I think. They're trying to be more collaborative when it comes to dealing with Trump, but they're also trying to find, where their niche is, given this could be a 2-party system coming up, maybe. We don't know where it's going to be, right? Yeah. So, there's certainly some criticism, but there's also lots of success that they had too, right? I mean, who gets 41% of the vote and not win a majority government?
When's the last time that happened? Pre-World War II, maybe?
It's been decades.
Yeah. So, look, from a conservative perspective, I think it's victory delayed, not denied. So my first advice would be to hold your coalition and then build upon it. I actually think that the coalition of voters who got behind the Conservatives is actually stronger and more enduring than the one that got behind the Liberals. A number of people who may have voted Conservative or may have voted New Democrat or Green went behind Carney. They saw him as having the resume and the chops to, work with President Trump and get us out of the mess that we're in. But that will pass, right? That coalition will pass. So I think build on what you've done. And there's some advice, I think, is then expanding the tent. The Conservative Party, is made up of. I'll tell this joke, and you can cut it out, Nick, if you want to later on. Every party has its chronic disease. For the New Democrats, it's ideology. That's almost always their doom. For Liberals, it tends to be corruption. That something goes wrong, and there's corruption, arrogance, and they fall apart. For the Conservatives, it's fratricide. Right? When we go into a caucus meeting, we bring our phone, a notebook, and a knife with us. And so I think that we saw some warring parties within the Conservative Party, even during the election campaign.
You're still seeing it with Tim Houston and the Premier Ford, Premier Smith.
So I think at a time where we've lost the election, but you're close, try to expand the tent among the Conservative family and get more people, among the warring tribes involved, so they feel that they've got an ownership of the final result.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to have kept a pretty tight ship when they were running this campaign, and since the election has ended, some of them have been let out a bit more. I don't remember you doing that with your caucus.
They loved me. They loved me. It's the thing, Alvin. Caucus, they're with you, win or tie. and then after that, not so hot. Yeah, I mean, what I tried to do. I mean, I was
Well, and sorry to interrupt, but you got to run a second election.
It's true. Yep.
There's a lot of the leading parties right now aren't giving chances to their candidates to run a second time, their leaders a second time. Bonnie's, she's got a leadership review as well, and so she's got to face that, and Pierre's going to have to face that too in the next year. So it'll be interesting.
So what I tried to do, and certainly wasn't perfect, and we all would have issues when you're dealing with Type A personalities, particularly the AAAs in politics. But in the provincial Conservative Party, there really were, 4 different tribes, to use that word. There was the blue conservative, sort of Mike Harris. I was kind of the head of that tribe for our leadership. There's the red Tories, a bit more traditional. Christine Elliott was a leader. Frank Cleese was the leader of the social conservatives, and Randy Hillier, the libertarians. And there's sort of the 4 different tribes that exist in the provincial Conservative Party. And once I won that leadership, Alvin, what I tried to do was make sure that I took the best from those various groups to form my own team.
Right.
Give those leaders positions of responsibility. Christine Elliott became my deputy leader, for example. Right. But also take the most talented, Nicks and Ryans that are available on everybody's staff and make them part of my own team. And it held together quite well. And, even now that I'm outside of politics for some time, the nature of that team and how we look out for each other still remains quite strong.
So are you done with elected politics?
Yeah, 21 years.
You're never running again?
21 years, man. That's more than they give you manslaughter in our country. So, yeah,
I mean, you're still young. You're still pretty talented at this.
That's why you're in politics. You can say that with a straight face. Again, it was a tremendous experience. The opportunity to fight for what you believe in, make a difference in your community, to lead. But like in sports, there comes a time that it's time to skate off the ice and hang up the skates and participate in some other way. Mm-hmm. So, fighting for home ownership was a great reward post-politics. Now I'm really enjoying solving problems as a partner at Council Public Affairs. But, Alvin, it's important in life to know when it's your time on the main stage is in the past and it's somebody else's job.
So tell us what you're doing now at Council.
So I'm partner at Council Public Affairs. So Council Public Affairs is a leading public affairs company. What does that mean, public affairs? Well, if you're running into a problem with government, whether it's a city, the province, federally, or a regulator, we're there to go to bat for you. If you keep hitting a wall when you're trying to expand your business, we help you get through that wall and get that job done. We also give communications advice, training for working with the media, or giving a big speech, as well as polling. So we are in Toronto, the provincial government, in Ottawa, the national government, all the western provinces, so we're a national firm. And the really cool part, Alvin, is that we're multi-partisan. So we have 3 partners. I'm the Conservative. Yep. Seamus Murphy, who was very successful with the Trudeau government, and McGuinty is the Liberal. Brad Levine, who is a campaign manager for Jack Layton's a New Democrat. Wonderful guys. It's fun running the firm with them. They're hopelessly misguided philosophically, but they're great leaders.
I had the honor of meeting Bill Davis, Premier Davis,
a
couple of times. I actually went to his house in Brampton because I was working at Sheridan College. We named the campus after him. And around our 50th anniversary, we wanted to celebrate the history of Sheridan. And in Mississauga, everybody talks about Hazel. And Hazel actually had a number of busts created of her. And she's got, kind of statues and things like that all over the city. And I realized no one had done anything for Bill Davis. So I went to his house. I brought an artist. We were there for a couple of hours. It was really interesting. Yeah, he shared some photos. He stood for it. But in the entire time, we had a great conversation because we were talking the whole time, right? And he said, Alvin, I like you a lot. You seem like a really intelligent person. You're just politically misguided. But hopefully I can convince you one day to come to the right side.
I wonder if I stole that from him.
Maybe. He was great. He was always great. And he had a lot of great stories too, right? And I mean, he built the college system in Ontario.
Yeah.
He did so much of what you would consider, the legacy of what the province is right now. So we owe a lot to him.
You've had some pretty good leaders here from Peel, my friend.
Yeah.
That's why I got you on the list.
Thank you. One thing you miss about elected politics? Anything you miss about elected politics?
Yeah, 3 things, right? One thing I've got back now. You miss the combat, right? Like the adrenaline rush of question period, or having the bright lights on you and all the microphones, in your face for the media scrum. It was a tremendous test of staying calm in the pocket, knowing your stuff, and communicating. And being in that arena, yes, I still get juiced up about thinking about that sometimes. So
Yeah.
I miss the combat. Second thing I miss is knowing why decisions are made. Right. You can theorize on the outside, the media can speculate, you can gossip, but knowing, why the premier made a call, or leader of the opposition made a call, or a minister did, like being there front row and seeing why it happened,
Yeah.
I miss the front row ringside seat. And the third thing I'm getting again, like one of the joys, and you experience this, Alvin, in your work too, is learning a little bit about a lot of different things
Right.
in a lot of different places. So
Yeah.
now, as a partner at Council of Public Affairs, I've been working on a wide variety of files, from agriculture one day to nurses the next day to automobiles the next day. It's a fun way to go through life and just seeing the amazing people we have in our province and what we can accomplish.
Right. No, I always found that really interesting, especially when I was running for leader, just driving around the province and then, understanding that Windsor pizza is different and it's special. When you go to Thunder Bay, you gotta go to the Hoyto and get some pancakes.
It's closed.
I know. It
Tragic.
didn't survive COVID. But any favorite places around the province? Where would you tell someone to go for the weekend?
Well, Niagara, of course. See, I can't get that out of my blood. The hidden's probably not the right word. The part of the province that I probably least appreciated growing up in Niagara, but grew to love and love to go back with my girls, is a good distance in Northern Ontario. Just you've done that in your leadership tour, right? I remember taking a drive from Thunder Bay, across to Timmins, the vastness of the province, the beauty, seeing a moose on the side of the road, the fishing in remote lakes in Northern Ontario, where the fish are so populous in the lakes, nobody else is there, that they jump in your boat just to get out of the crowd, right? Like, it's crazy. I remember actually casting one time, and a fish jumped and bit before it even hit the water, right?
Yeah.
So the beauty of our north and the resourcefulness of the people who live within it was my top recommendation.
It's amazing going up there. I actually took my kids on a bit of a tour. We called it a tour across Canada. We were driving during COVID because we couldn't go anywhere. So we packed the van, we filled it with all the camping gear we had. And I remember driving up north, and we were talking about, it's like 18 hours to Thunder Bay, right? Like, it's not close.
Right.
And you're driving north most of the time. And you're like, we're still in Ontario. We haven't left Ontario yet. But we would, pull over and stay at some provincial parks. We were at the Sleeping Giant in Thunder Bay. There was a Lake Superior one. And, the sun doesn't set till 10:30 at night, right? Because you're in the middle of the summer. And no one else was there because it was COVID. But it was gorgeous. And I wish more people got to see that.
And your kids will remember that forever.
Yeah.
Right? They'll remember that forever. I remember being in the Lake of the Woods outside of Kenora, again on a boat, and seeing a bear jump from one island and sort of swim towards the boat. I didn't know bears could swim, first of all, and they're pretty good swimmers. And thinking, this is just beautiful. And then thinking, holy crap, there's a bear swimming towards our boat. This is probably ultimately not good. But then it actually was heading to another island. And
Right. Well, and I think most people don't realize how big moose actually are, right? I mean, they're standing in the water, and you're in your canoe, and you're like, I can't believe how big this thing is.
Their antlers would be going through the roof of this room right now.
It's a truck. Like, they're massive. But it's a big province. Hopefully more people get a chance to explore it. But also here, we got a lot to offer in Mississauga. Hopefully you get a chance to come explore the rest of the city.
That was the answer I should have given. See,
No, that wasn't the fishing for that. But, I mean, we are trying to do a lot of really interesting things. We have some, we're hosting the Scotties next year.
Nice.
If you like curling. We're the only stop on the LGBTA tour.
Outstanding.
We're really trying to put ourselves on the map so that people come visit the city that they land in most of the time to go to Toronto. But we're a net importer of jobs too. We've got huge industries in aerospace and life sciences, and we're trying to be the center of the solution that the province and the country's looking for.
Yeah, a well-run city, great place to live. And I know, having worked with the Mississauga Real Estate Board, just how proud they are of the various communities that make up Mississauga, and how many people would just give anything to be able to get a home in this city.
Which we just need to make it more affordable for them to live here, and we need more housing to do that. So anyway, just wanted to thank you, Tim, for coming on. This has been fantastic. Really enjoyed catching up with you again.
My pleasure. Hopefully I haven't caused your ratings in your podcast a deep dive. But
no, you know what? I'm always looking for those anecdotes too, right? And so the behind the scene things. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Was there anything you thought that would be interesting?
I think anybody still watching is probably bored out of their mind with my stories. No, listen, Alvin, I appreciate your leadership here in the city as part of the Ontario Liberal Party and staff before that, and how you are somebody who wants to stand up and make a difference for the city and the province of Ontario, and just even doing this podcast. And thanks for having me on. And I look forward. I've enjoyed our time together in the past, and I look forward to our future adventures together.
For sure. See you again soon. Thanks, Tim. Thank you, Tim, once again for joining me on the InCamera podcast. You can follow him on X at Tim Hudak. If you have any suggestions or questions for the show, email me at alvintedjo.bsky.social. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this episode, and we'll see you next time.